All right, welcome everyone heading in right now. This is December 13th and it is forward focus. So we've had a lot of two-step measured moves today and a lot of examples where things are stalling at that 76.4% fib level. We've been kind of talking about all week when we've been looking at profit taking in League of Traders. So I posted a number of examples that I've been following in the channel for you guys to go back and review. And we are going to go and today look at what's going on some of the bigger time frames in forward focus here. So I'm going to flip on over here to our charts and we're going to start with the indices. So I'm going to pull up the NASDAQ first. So I'm going to flip this over here, go to a larger time frame. And actually, I grabbed the wrong one. And let me grab the one that I've got all my other time frames on here. Maybe not. There we go. So here's our daily chart. So what we're seeing on this daily time frame, and I posted this last night, clear this, is we have a 2T that's trying to form up here at the highs. You guys see it? Who does not see the 2T? Let's start with that question. Be totally honest. If you don't see it, fess up. We're just going to see. I know we get new people and folks like that. So basically learning the strategies has to do with repetition over and over and over again until it is drilled in. So here's what I'm looking at for the 2T. We've got to move up here, this pullback, and then it's coming up to this higher high here. So this is shifting the channel, the momentum of the market right here. Let me grab the template for the 2T, you guys. I'm going to move this up and show you that template. So here's what a 2T looks like as a template version. And what you can see is that what I'm looking for is a major move up to a high, typically a pivot high where we get this is kind of V type of top here. We get a move up that doesn't quite go to that previous high, a correction that is shorter than this correction. So what that means is that the distance between this high, and where this tries to break is going to be usually about half as much. Sometimes it's a little less than that. Sometimes it's a little bit more. But generally speaking, that's about what we're looking for. And then it's going to go and do about a measured move here. So here to a new high. And then we look for reversals off of that. So we've got a couple of levels that you're looking for entries. You can take the channel break. This is what we usually try to go for. This one can be a little bit trickier just because it might have already moved into that level. But if you see a smaller base or a retest up there, that can get you short as well. So the 2T is, some people love it. Some people like to wait for the continuation with the avalanche or another continuation pattern where basically at this point, they're looking for a two-wave move like that to get continuation going. So you can look for both of those. Let's go back to that chart on the daily time frame and show you again what that is looking like. So here's the daily time frame. So you can see this came up. We have a pretty good V top here. Momentum had already started to shift right at a measured move level. So we were seeing that shift here going into early December that led to some downside for us into early December. And now I'm going to go to a 240 and show you guys that one. Guess I don't have a 240 up here. We'll increase this. And here's what we're looking at as the current action, actually 60-minute. Oh, here 240 is here. So 60-minute might even show this in a little bit more detail. But what we got is a two-wave move up, and here's where it stalls just below that previous high. Then we get a pullback. Now, usually this pullback is a two-wave correction. Instead, here we had a little bit of this inverse head and shoulders, and we only saw one pivot low. So that's a little bit of a difference than what we will see as a pure template for a 2T. And then what you're looking for is the measured move up to that level. So let me erase these other fib extensions. I'm gonna put a new one on. So when we only have one pivot low, what do we use to do our Fibonacci extensions, you guys? Do we go here where it breaks out? Do we go here where the inverse head and shoulder starts? Do we go here? Which one? 1, 2, or 3? 1, 2, or 3? Lowest low, right? Now, if this had had another pullback in here with a higher low, we would have used that one. So this is what we're looking at here. So you can see we came right up to that 76.4 on the 12th. Looks like it was on the 12th. And it reacted off of there. It had a pretty big reaction, actually. It came back down into the congestion there before it's been trying to kind of creep back up. So what I'm looking at right now on this time frame is some sort of additional shift in momentum as we come up into this high. We're going to be heading into the holidays, of course, next week as well. So we've got some declining volume that's going to happen here from here on out. Early half of the week probably won't be too bad. Things will drop off more at the end of next week. And a lot of times that alone can be a catalyst to get some of these moves going. So we'll keep an eye on this, but that's what I'm going to be looking for throughout the next week. Unfortunately, I am going to be gone. Got to go do some lovely MRI stuff in Los Angeles next Friday. So we won't have a forward focus session for next Friday. I'm going to be starting our Christmas break, our holiday break on Thursday next week, and then we'll come back here at the beginning of the new year. So I want to make sure you guys have a good idea of what's going on with the bigger picture here. Might be able to make it back and do a session on the 27th for forward focus, but we'll just kind of see here as this goes. So this is what we've got going on here. And the overall market, the S&P 500 is doing the same thing. So we're seeing the same type of thing trying to develop on the S&P 500 as well. And what would we look for initial target levels, you guys? What do you think could happen if this goes and does that 2T that we're expecting? It'll be right around this level. Notice it's also 8,600 zone. So we've got some hefty price resistance there too. 85.80 would be our 100% extension. So we're just shy of that 8,600. We've got one guess to 81, 8,100 down here. Actually, that is not too bad of a guess. So what it would happen to do is if it does that, if it does the 2T up there, it goes to that. It depends on how this reacts off this high. So if we get kind of a steady move down and then it starts to do a little bit of a correction in here, then that can do the two-wave down there that would kind of create this opening megaphone pattern here. So that is definitely a possibility with the way this is currently forming. That could happen here. It's also the support zone from over here. So you've got this previous high as a good level of support. It all kind of depends on how this comes off of this high. So usually what I'm looking for as a main target level coming off of a 2T is going to be, grab my trend channel. So what we would be looking for is, let's just say this is where kind of the upper end of that trend channel hits. We often will see this as kind of the main target level. So if this comes up into that zone with a 2T, we'll often see this come back down into at least that lower channel. And how fast it does that determines whether it's going to go for that megaphone formation. We actually had a really great example in League of Traders Live yesterday that we followed from before the megaphone triggered until afterwards. So you can go back, and those of you that missed the session yesterday, go back and watch that. The replay link was in your invite here for today. So it was in the second half of the session. And it plays out exactly the type of thing that we could see happening here. So you're going to be looking for 8360 congestion zone for S2. So yep, you've got the congestion zone in here is going to be a level to watch for too. So we're going to have to see, what that momentum is like, but these are two of the ways that that can happen. So that reacts there, you're more likely to get, my guess would be this would be more likely to go for like a Momo 2T or a momentum reversal plus if it tries to hold that channel level. And that's because this V is so fast here. So the difference between this high and this high, really, really tight with this really rapid drop and retracement. So with something that would be more likely to form like a momentum reversal here that would be sustainable, this would be a little bit wider played out compared to the upside move. So we would see a little bit more play here. So this is why this can go and do these two highs. It can go and do another high like that and then try to turn around at that point. Or if it does manage to make it back up to that level, we would be more likely to see it go like that and come back up and go to a momentum reversal plus over here. So let me show you two examples of what these would look like for those of you that are just learning the strategy. So here I'm going to move my slides up a little bit and show you guys some examples of what these specific patterns are. So go back over here. So here's what a momentum reversal would typically look like. And notice how these are spaced out a little bit more compared to this upside move. So that extra spacing can help these turn around where we'll actually get further and faster downside. And in an ideal momentum reversal, this will come faster off of this high. So this target one, it'll just blast right through that. It might pause there, form an avalanche at that point, but then keep going. The momentum reversal plus looks like this, where you get the momentum reversal, but maybe something's not quite right in that momentum reversal portion. So you get a two-wave correction, another two-wave ups, and then it basically has a 2T and comes off of that and goes into the avalanche. Now a momentum reversal 2T, I'm actually going to flip over here. So here's a good example of a momentum reversal plus. This is what it can look like. We just flip that over at the highs. And then here's what a momentum reversal 2T would look like. So it doesn't make it up to that third high there. It makes it, oops, my mouse is going crazy. Stops a little bit shy of it and then goes for that next move. And then it will reverse at that point. Sometimes we'll get a retest. We saw a retest in the Momo 2T I posted, was it yesterday, day before? We had a good example of one that I posted in the Telegram channel for you guys. So if you scroll back up through those charts, you'll see that too. So these are the types of patterns that we're going to be watching for at this level, and basically can help turn around that daily time frame and kind of give us a little bit of a bigger correction. Let's see if I've got, we had a momentum reversal on a smaller time frame coming off of the lows on the NASDAQ. Let me show you that here. This was actually not the last trade I took, but the second to last trade I took here today. And let's see, what time is this one? So I used a 25 tick to enter, but it was also based upon much larger time frame support. So it was a measured move on like the 800 tick on the downside. Let's see if I've got a bigger. So here's the 500. So here you can see the measured move here. And then we were coming into, it looks like a 2B on the 500 tick. And then when you see it on the smaller time frame, we actually had a momentum reversal right here. And this is a really good example of it. So you've got it here, 1, 2, 3. And I actually bought it coming off of this low because I was looking at this little baby 2B here too. So I bought it here and then added here. So this is a perfect example of what that will look like. This is just a really small time frame. And it was based upon what's going on the bigger time frame. So you can kind of see that 2B-ish formation on the bigger time frame when I squish it up. And then here you can see, let me put that measured move level on there for the extension. And it was almost exact. I think on the micros it might have been perfect, but it was almost exactly into that measured move. So this is that one. And then I built in more on the continuation here. Just kind of played this on the way back up. But this is a lot of how that formation off of the lows, that can flip over and happen off of the highs. The thing here is that this kind of is already slowing momentum. So we've got the stronger momentum with these 3 waves down, 2-wave correction. Then it comes and it tries to do a 2-wave back down, but the second wave ends up being kind of stunted. So then it goes into that shift. And it's almost a megaphone too, because these 2 highs are about the same. So you have that shift that turns us around. On the daily chart though, that shift happens here, but it's not as pronounced as it was intraday. So that means that we're not necessarily guaranteed as strong of a reaction. It just depends on, can this form another pattern up here that can shift that momentum to bring in some stronger downside. Let's see, let's go look at some of the other indices here. So here's that daily on the Russell. We were looking at this range a while back. So we're seeing this kind of pushing through here, but we don't have really much of a longer correction and it didn't increase momentum. So it's struggling. This is something that we can get, the stronger move up, the shallow pullback, and then it can go up like this and give a stronger reversal. So this creeping is making it more at risk that this could happen. There will be times that it can creep out and gain momentum. Not really seeing any indication of that yet. So right now the channel is about like this on the momentum. And again, this has that potential to break down like that. A lot of times what will happen here is, let's just say here's where it's breaking out. It can come up, do like this continuation, kind of do even a measured move like that, and then turn around and shift at that high and bring it down. So that can be what that can look like too. If this was, if basically the overall market had a lot more momentum and this was coming off of, you know, major low type of thing, then what we would be more often like to see if this came down, you know, like that popped up and then we saw the same thing happening and it slowly started, it might pull back, but then take off. Or it would go like this. So it would come into here, kind of go slow, and then gain momentum like that. So those two things would be more common if the same pattern was happening, like right at the bottom of a downtrend. But it's not. So let's see. What are some of the things that you guys would like me to pull up to look at here? Gold. All right, let me grab some charts on gold. And intraday on the 800, I can already show you guys some of these closer ones. Because I've been playing gold all day too. So my first trade on gold here this morning was this breakdown here. So what I saw was the 2T over here. So it had two waves up, measured move, and then it went and did the 2T. So this is essentially your avalanche portion, but what was nice about it is because it had a little bit of a 2B here, that after it did that, when it tried to break out again, see how it shifted that momentum? So I didn't catch the high, but I caught the continuation on that. And this went to exactly that 100% on the downside. So right here, what we're dealing with is it's coming off of the 100% extension on the upside. And again, it only had this one pivot low here in the middle. So here I used the second high. Here I used just this first low and I counted in two. So 1 and 2, and then that correction for the continuation and the resistance. So right in here, this is something where based upon what the current momentum is, we could get this to come back up and retest. There's that potential for that to happen. But this general zone is a good little start zone here to kind of might hold this even into the end of the day. Let's go up to the larger time frames though, because on the daily chart on gold, I'm going to flip around here. So here's this is where the support was for that NASDAQ trade that I took. And we followed the trade yesterday right off of 76.4% retracement too. Here's another example, 76.4, kind of shifted the momentum a little bit into that. Got some of these other setups going in here, but I want to go back to that daily on gold. So here's the daily on gold. So what we're looking at right now is that time development wise, we've got about the same amount of time correction here. So here's our pullback. This tried to go with the shallow avalanche, but it didn't get going very far. So that's about the 1-to-1 ratio. And now we're right about the 2-to-1 ratio of basing zone to downside zone. So that means that this is now at another critical do or die point for trying to get going. If this is going to go, we are also right at that third low, 1, 2, 3, where you get the even spacing. It did have a little low in here. That was kind of like a midway point, but that's just a variation on the pattern. Our real third low is happening right here with this evenly spaced test. So this is a very crucial do or die point for gold here. So if this is going to gain momentum and be able to pull back down, it would do it at this point. I actually want to show you a weekly on this because longer term, we've been looking at a lot of strength on gold. Actually, I'm going to go give you a monthly first and then the weekly. And the current action does not negate the bigger time frame stuff. It just means we're not sure how far it's going to correct yet until it gets to that back to that previous level. Let me go all the way back down here. So here's the monthly on gold. So what we're seeing is this tried to gain momentum coming out of here. So what we want to see is, even though this can still fall back here, we don't really want it to go much further than that 1400 zone in order to keep up that strength to keep going. So we really want to hold it in this congestion here, maybe 1350, but really this zone is what we want to see holding here, so that it's basically holding this congestion and then giving the continuation on the upside. So the fact that it's trying to do these shallow avalanches is really not great for longer term stuff, but it hasn't negated it yet. So that's a tricky thing when you're an investor, because you'll see the resistance levels like we saw here on gold. We knew this was a good, correction period because we had measured move levels. We basically had the Phoenix and then the 1, 2, 3. So it went like this. And that's a good spot for things to widen up. So sometimes it can widen up and creep and give us higher highs, can widen up, give a longer correction and go higher. We just don't know as easily at this point what version is going to happen right after that. And right now we're getting the shallow avalanche version. So shorter term, I'm more prone to focus on the short side of things, but I'm not as committed that we're going to get as strong of a shallow avalanche as we would if it was happening at like previous highs or even slightly higher highs, because those zones would be much better to sustain a shallow avalanche that would lead to a true larger drop on this monthly time frame. So it's kind of at a midway point. Not kind of, it is at a midway point, but it's at a midway point on this way back up. So when shallow avalanches happen at that level, they aren't necessarily as strong. They can do just a measured move on the downside and not do like that bigger 1, 2, 3. So, just watch that momentum as it tries to go if we get the trigger on it. You want to see almost immediate momentum to get that 1, 2, 3 on the downside. Let me show you the weekly too so you guys can see the perspective on that. Because we're right at also comparable time development for that Phoenix. So see the time development here? We're right at very similar time development. So this is what we're looking at, is also confirming this as a do or die point too. So not only just what we saw on the daily time frame, but also what we're seeing on here. So this, if it was a typical shallow avalanche, actually the weekly has the room to do 1, 2, 3. It could go like this into here and shift momentum then as it comes into this zone. But if it does that, it's going to be harder for the bulls to regain control. So it can certainly do that based upon what we're seeing here on the weekly. And let's see, where was that on the NASDAQ? I want to show you guys what that looked like. We had this happening on the NASDAQ the other day. Just not sure what time frame it was on. But I want to show it to you as a comparison. See if I can find it. Let me look at my other computer. If you guys remember what day we had that on, let me know. There's one on the 10th. You can see it on the 10th on the 800 tick. So we could probably see it on the 500 then. So here, This is not quite a perfect one, but it starts out slowly. See how it starts out slowly like this, and then it kind of gains momentum. But this didn't do the 1, 2, 3 in this case. So it just had the slower start. So basically here's your first congestion, second congestion, breakdown. So here's first congestion, second congestion, breakdown. And this is what is more powerful to try to bring the bowls back in. Whereas typically this would go to a 1, 2, 3. So where it kind of paused here, it would go down and then do a widening up at that point. So that's what we're kind of looking at here on gold. And let's pull up some of your guys' stocks here that you want to look at too. Got Baidu. Hopefully Victoria, I think you were the one that was asking about the time corrections earlier. Hopefully that helped you out on that one. So Baidu was coming off of trying to do that inverse head and shoulders. Now it's trying to do a continuation, but it's having a hard time because of the monthly. So usually I see this kind of monthly pattern. A lot of times what will happen is it can have a much stronger bounce in here, but then come back and do a retest before it can try to do another wave up. And that can actually turn things around really strongly when that happens. So this would be something to watch for on a monthly time frame. On a weekly, kind of a little tricky here on the weekly because this could still do another pretty rapid bounce in there before it goes down. So basically, again, at that do or die point on the daily chart, a lot of times when I see like a single bar up and then the base, it can concern me because it might have a harder time following through as quickly on the upside, but it can still give us that two-wave move up that could go and create a 2B pattern. So on the daily chart, I would just be watching the intraday momentum shifts on this. So 5 minute, let's go up to 60. Little concerning because it has the 2T. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the intraday chart because the way this is trying to shift, it can pull back down. That won't necessarily negate this breakout because it could still come back into the zone and get going again, basically with an inverse head and shoulders type of pattern. It just does have that risk of that happening because it kind of went for a higher high too fast. And that's not really something I love to see. Are you seeing a 2B at the Phoenix shelf? I'm not sure which portion are you looking at. So we had essentially a messy 2B here, and then it went into the Phoenix, which is basically your shoulder. And see, this is one where it has the shoulder, head, and shoulder here. So we got shoulder, head, shoulder on the bigger scale. Let me put that in yellow. And then we've got that in here too. So it can still do that over here too and manage to get going. This is one where if I was in the position and I saw it going more quickly for that 2T, I would have tried to have taken off part of the trade, especially on the retest on intraday. This had a nice even spacing on this pullback here going up, and then it had the shallow Phoenix. So you've got that good shift in that momentum there. just don't like what's going on right now. This is something where it can even flush people out that are holding on the long side, because even on short term, it might just go like that and then pop back up. It's really hard to predict here because it has a lot of the larger time frame on its favor here, but then the bigger time frame is not. So it's pretty much close to a do or die point here on the smaller time frame too, because the time development here to here is about the same. It's also about the same of that shallow avalanche. This is a good example of a shallow avalanche over here too, you guys. So this is the same type of thing that can happen on gold. SWKS. By the way, a bit of that check mark type of pattern trying on the NASDAQ right now. Right here. SWKS. And weekly has more room, even though it's coming up into these previous highs, it's gaining momentum into them. So this is going to be a resistance zone here. It should at least get to that upper end of it, I think. Monthly. Oh yeah, it's holding it pretty good on this. I would have liked this to have done one more flush out, but we don't always get what we like, right? So if it had just had one more little flush, it would have shifted the momentum even better. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be coming up to the third high here. And since it's coming from the lower end of the range all the way up to that upper end, it's a zone that it can pause at. But we see many cases where this will just blow right through this. In fact, we've had a number of them today. Let me show the NASDAQ again. See, so this was one here. Can't see it on the smaller time frame, but this one right here is a little bit more similar to what we've got going on right now, because this would be more comparable to this zone. And then this here, this two-wave correction is a little bit slower. So we've got some slower movement. So it doesn't react as much at the previous high, but we still get a reaction off of the channel. So that's how that pushes through there. So I think, you know, investment wise, it's looking pretty good. Short-term little levels you want to watch for are things like if this tries to start to develop a shallow avalanche, that would be something to watch for here. Some of the previous impulse waves, we don't really have a lot of comparable moves like this one because the momentum is so strong here. So maybe look at the weekly time frame instead of the month, or instead of the daily. This is a tricky one for making some more of these comparable moves because it's kind of choppier. I mean, this is basically what we've got going on here and here and on the way down. So since this would be essentially a phoenix, this can go for a 1, 2, 3 coming out of it. We saw that smaller version here. So now it's trying to do a bigger version. And sometimes that'll be a little bit slower on the next portion, but I would be looking for right up in there. But the larger time frame, the monthly, I think can keep going. So if you're looking longer term, I personally would still be holding on to this, just expecting some shorter term corrections. Tesla. You shorted Tesla? What are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. I haven't looked at it. Double top here. Oh, that's a good shallow avalanche. So see how this spiked here and then it kind of shifted that momentum? That's the thing that you've got to watch for on that SWKS. So that looks pretty. So this is one where it can go into a megaphone at this lower low here, right in there. It's going to be kind of your first major support, as long as the momentum can be pretty decent going into it. It doesn't even have to be as strong as on the upside. You can do a two wave and still make it back down into that level. So I think you've got a pretty good looking swing trade on there. 60-minute. Might get some congestion in here. Like I said, this could, kind of slow a little compared to the upside. So you got that shift in that momentum there at the high. What we want to watch for is if it tries to do like a momentum reversal plus type of thing. That's the type of thing you want to watch for. So this is some good initial support here intraday, but what we want to see is like this, and then it can go out a little bit longer and then do, that next wave down to get you down into that 340 zone. So have a shallower move than on the way up is what I would be anticipating. And then the main thing that I would watch for is any sign that it might go for like a momentum reversal plus. So like if it has like two waves down and then pops up too fast, then you want to watch that channel, because if that channel breaks, then that can come back up to a slightly higher high and kind of shift this a little bit more. Then that could be another sell signal if that happens. So just really watch the momentum. All right, let's see. PayPal. So PayPal is one that can bring it back up with kind of an inverse head and shoulders because it shifted the momentum here. So that can bring that back up. It looks a lot like what we saw happening on gold on the daily time frame here. Weekly is more iffy. Weekly has some greater potential that this, on this move trying to come up, could then go and break down. So kind of similar to the shallow avalanche. Just going to depend on how that momentum plays out as it tries to react to this level. It's good support here. And sometimes this will gain momentum with like a two-wave correction here. So it is at a point where you kind of need to see that momentum gain. So usually what you want to see is this to be head, shoulders, head and shoulders, and then try to pick up there. So you've got that kind of shift in here. That's the same shift in here. So it's trying. The main concern is that the difference between these highs is not evenly spaced. So this trying to break here runs the risk that it could get that shallower channel forming. So it might be able to make it back up, but then struggle at that point. So when you've got the distance between, let's say you're coming up here off of how low, if you've got pretty even spacing, like we saw on SWKS, it's easier to break through and kind of keep going with the trend. If it comes up though, and then it tries to go faster, then there's a risk it could stall here and turn back down. Basically a measured move here to here. Doesn't always happen, but that's the risk that is higher when we see this type of formation. The timing is actually really good for it to try to go. So it is, again, at a do or die point. It's another one that is at the do or die point right here. And then last one, Boeing. And Boeing daily is looking like shallow avalanche. Let's look at the weekly. It's not really a full pivot at the high. So shallow avalanches are better when they come up like that and then go and form, because then they can turn around a lot more easily. Whereas this already had a shift and then a higher high and then is trying to do what we would see as a shallow avalanche formation. So I think we talked about this before, where the head is a little bit steeper than we would usually see with the head and shoulders. But that head and shoulders zone is about what we would see with the shallow avalanche to get going. But it's just not as strong of a pattern. So let's go back to the daily. See if that's give us any better clues. So you can see it's not holding like we saw on PayPal, where it had that shift and then it was trying to do the head and shoulders. It's not holding that zone. It's kind of going too far to really sustain that upside. And we had the shift here with a baby head and shoulders. Okay, even spacing here for head and shoulders. So this is supporting that it's more likely to do a tilted avalanche here and come back down. That's what I'm seeing here on the daily chart. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for joining me here today. Let me know if that sends out the replay link. So if you guys get a copy of the replay link in your mail from GoToWebinar, I think it might come from Citrix or something like that, let me know. And hopefully it will. Cross our fingers. I will also still be posting this on YouTube too. So we'll get that up there as well. And like I said earlier, we're not going to have session next week. I've got a little lovely trip I've got to take, get my head examined, literally. And then I will be back home for Christmas. So everyone, if I don't see you until after the holiday here, I hope you have a wonderful season and rest of your year. And for the rest of you in League of Traders, I'll see you on Monday. All right, take care, everybody.